I went to Portugal and still made sales. Here's behind the scenes of a spiritual-led business that runs itself. What if your business didn't need to stop just because you took a break? I just got back from Portugal, my first international trip as founder of Mystic Twist. And let me tell you, I didn't just vacation, I earned money. While I was eating pastéis de natas, hanging out at the beach, touring ancient alleyways, and tuning into my next vision for my business actually kept growing. So while I was vacationing, I had 2 clients come in. One was a high ticket client and one was a low ticket client. I was able to do this because my automation funnels sold digital products while I was offline. I was even able to support one of my VIP clients while I was in Europe, done at a time that aligned with my energy and my time zone. So in today's video, I'll share how I set up my business so that I can travel yet still earn at the same time, what it's like to experience entrepreneurship outside of the US, and how a soul-aligned business allows you to take real vacations without the guilt or the stress. So why did I go to Portugal? Portugal wasn't just a vacation. It was an energy reset and my first international travel as a business owner. As a Mystic CEO, I know that location carries energy. Portugal has this amazing history, not only in its colonial era, but before all of that colonial era, there was this magical place called Al-Andalus. I go into great detail about Al-Andalus in one of my latest podcasts. You can check it out there. But basically, this space is literally teeming with ancient mysticism. There's something about that old, creative, soulful, magical energy that still permeates the area of Portugal, especially the southern part. When I was there, I felt so connected and inspired, and I was able to tap into this ancient collective field at a mystical level that was incredibly powerful because I was there at a physical level. And also spending time at the beach helped me feel inspired, clear, and powerful. It helped me light up with new ideas and imagine what was possible. This was also the very first time that I brought my spiritual business on the road. Mystic Twist got her passport stamped. How this trip came about was actually very serendipitous. One of my best friends was having a work trip there and invited me to come along. Just so happened that her work event was happening at a very posh resort. Once we started to make our travel plans, we had a lot of our students actually requesting us to facilitate a workshop in person. It's always the best when you have customers begging you to do a training or offer a product. So naturally, we turned it into a business trip, and I'm so glad we did because my vacation effectively became a tax write-off, but more on that later. Now, whenever you're traveling internationally, there's a lot you need to think about, not only logistics about travel, location, or speaking a different language, but if you're running a business at the same time, you also need to think about how your business is gonna run while you're away. So before I left, I made sure that I had essentials in place so that I could pick up and go and still have my business be successful. I made sure that my lead magnet and funnel was up and running. My Stripe and Stan store were set up so that they could process payments for any products or purchases while I was gone. My high ticket clients also knew about my travel window, so they knew when and how to get a hold of me despite the time zone change. I also batched a ton of social media content ahead of time so that my agency had content ready to go for me to upload even though I was on the road and traveling. I have to say, it felt so good having content to post even while I was traveling and not being able to film for 2 weeks. The result? 2 new clients joined while I was traveling, like literally in the air. One signed up for my 6-session coaching package as well. And I had digital sales come in with my latest ebook that I just soft launched not too long ago. So thanks to the automation funnels I put in place with my store, with emails, with my products, I was able to make money while I was literally asleep or sitting at the beach. This was the first time I finally felt that moment of, quote, passive income. Passive income in the sense that you have money coming in when you are not actively working on bringing that money in, like working a salary or hourly job. Although I've had sales before, it felt even more magical because I was literally in a foreign country, looked at my phone, and saw that I had new sales that day. This is the power of automation, having a clear strategy and content pillars in place so that your content works for you while you're away. So even though I was traveling internationally, my audience kept growing, even while I was offline. What was even better is that I was able to update my audience about my travels on the go as well. So for my closest followers, they were able to see my stories and the latest updates while things were happening. It felt like my audience was with me on my journey, which was really nice because not only did I not feel alone, but also I could bring them with me to have a co-created experience, and they can get a glimpse into what it was like for me to travel across Portugal. One of the things that really surprised me about the entrepreneurs in Portugal is their mindset. This is something I noticed right away, and it's not just unique to Portugal, but to a lot of different business professionals in Europe in general. And that's that there's a less hustle and more flow. People take their time. They sit at cafes for hours, or they'll have lunch with their friends really late, or even have dinner well into the evening hours just because they want to enjoy the space, the food, and the company. I also noticed that people walk more. They smiled more. They took time to really genuinely connect with people. And somehow they're still getting things done. That contrast really helped me slow down in the best way. I realized how much of America especially has this hustle culture, or we like to drive our nervous systems to the point of the brink of anxiety. While I was in Portugal, I realized how much of my nervous system was still wired to the US grind. For a while, it took a little time just to be able to relax and enjoy myself, which is kind of interesting because isn't that the point of vacation, is to go off and unplug and unwind? Or maybe that's why you wanted to start a business to begin with, is to have the freedom, the time, and the money to go off and enjoy these places. And ironically, I was in this beautiful, idyllic location and in some ways struggling to just unwind a little bit. But then I realized that slowing down doesn't mean doing less or being less effective. It meant doing things with presence and mindfulness. That's a frequency upgrade that most entrepreneurs don't even know that they need. What I also found to be really inspiring is that when I was creating content in Portugal, it felt like I was more present, not only connected to the environment in where I was, but also more present in the actual creation process itself. It's amazing how much your environment can influence you. And so one thing to keep in mind is to reflect, how is your immediate environment influencing you right now? Now, this obviously depends on your situation. If you're a busy mom, an entrepreneur, or you work a full-time job, a lot of your time and energy is going to be dictated by other people. And that's perfectly fine. We don't live in isolation, and we have to co-create our reality with many people in order to exist and thrive in our life, But what I realized is that I was squishing so much work into such a short amount of time that I wasn't always being fully present in my actual creation process. So that's one of the things that really stood out to me when I was in Portugal, was how people just take time to enjoy life. Now, some people might say that's not a winning attitude, and that's perfectly fine. If you want to do the hustle grind culture, by all means, go for it. There's no one right size fits all approach here. But what I'm realizing is that everyone has their own perfect balance that's right for them. And for me, I'm realizing that having a really good structure in place so that I can focus and be really proactive and diligent about my work is important. But I also need time to go outside and smell the roses. In some cases, quite literally. If you're fortunate to travel, whether it's locally or internationally, then I really encourage you to reflect on how that travel makes you process your own structure or routine differently. That's one of the fun things about having our life disrupted by travel, is that it brings in new perspectives and opportunities to reflect on new areas of life that maybe we aren't always considering or taking for granted. So I'm super grateful to have had that experience, to come back feeling refreshed, rejuvenated, and also very grateful for the space in which I do live my life. So here's another big thing that I learned while traveling for my business in Portugal. What a lot of spiritual business owners don't know is that your trip, if it includes business-related activities, you can actually write those activities off for your taxes. Now, mind you, this is specific to people who have businesses located in the United States. Maybe some of these benefits also can happen in other countries, but I'm only familiar primarily with businesses operating in the United States. And so if you keep your receipts and have business-related activities on your trip, you can actually expense that against your taxes when you give your taxes to the tax man at the end of the year. So I'm keeping my receipts for meals related to business planning, my flights, because it was a business flight, workspace rentals, especially if I'm conducting the business itself at the workspace, client calls from co-working spots, internet, and international SIM card expenses. So just make sure to document all of your receipts and your expenses super well, because you're going to need really clean bookkeeping for this. Not only to keep your business activity legitimate, but also for your own peace of mind when you're tallying up your expenses for your quarterly or annual reports. Now, I highly recommend you talk to a tax professional so that you really understand the ins and outs of how to itemize expenses for your business. But yes, your mystical business can help you travel more, if that's what you want. Another thing that this trip really reminded me of is why I got started in it to begin with. I didn't start Mystic Twist to work harder or to build myself another job. I already got one of those. But I started Mystic Twist to not only live better, but to share my wisdoms and my teachings to people who I know want them and are interested in them. When I was in Portugal hosting this event with people who had flown from over 5 different countries to attend this live workshop, it reminded me of just the power of getting together in person and doing this work for the larger human collective. It's these types of events that get me so excited and motivated to do this work in the first place. I especially love teaching in person, and I love teaching about mystical practices that help improve people's lives. So it was such a pleasure to be able to not only do this in person, but in a beautiful country that is truly magnificent on so many levels. What's even better is having students who actually want to be there. This is the value of having really high quality customers who want your content. You're not begging them to show up, but they're already qualified and know that they want your work and your material because you've already validated that it resonates with them and will help them solve a real world problem. Now, there's a lot of ways to figure that out, and I go into great detail about how to do that in my ebook. I'll drop the link below in case you want to check it out, but just know that it's not so much about the number of followers you have, but the quality of followers you have, because ultimately you want those customers who want your products. I also set up my business to align very well with my personal superpowers, strengths, and preferences on how I want to run my business. This helps me use my energy and creative power in the best way so that I can show up fully present, fully human, and fully engaged for the people I am here to support. Freedom isn't just a number that you have in your bank account, although that can be really powerful. It's also the ability to create, rest, and play when your body says it's time. And my body was definitely telling me it's time. I needed a vacation so badly, but not only that, I needed that refresh and rejuvenation of teaching people in person who wanted to be there. My last tip for entrepreneurs, if you're ever going to do an international trip for your business, I highly recommend that you coordinate with a local in the area. Fortunately, we had some friends who were based and from Portugal, so they were able to show us around, translate and speak the language when we needed to, but they also gave us an amazing opportunity to host the event itself at a beautiful location. It would have been so much more difficult working with someone or an agency outside of the country who didn't know anything about the local area or even the culture or the language. So it's just going to be so much easier if you're ever organizing a fully international event to work with someone who's on the ground in that country. If there's one thing I wish I had done better for this trip, it would have been my pricing. So I realized that when I priced the workshop, I wasn't fully taking into consideration all of the expenses it took for me, my international travel to get there. Now, this wasn't a huge loss because quite honestly, I planned the trip to be more of a vacation rather than a business trip, but I realized that was a missed opportunity. If you are gonna do an international event, especially if you're traveling far abroad or to a place with a different currency, you need to make sure that the costs of your travel are met by the ticket prices of the event you're hosting. In other words, I didn't turn a profit hosting the event itself. But that's okay because I'm still getting benefits from my tax write-offs, the experience itself. I got a ton of opportunity to create content. And of course, just meeting and connecting with people in person was so nurturing for my soul and my spirit. But next time, I definitely want to make sure that I price my workshops, especially if they're international, to not only meet the needs of me and my trip, but to actually turn a profit. So if you've been dreaming of building a business that runs while you rest or you vacation, I hope this video gave a glimpse of what's possible for you. My trip to Portugal wasn't just a vacation, although it definitely had vacation elements to it. It was proof to myself that with the right strategy, the right implementation, you can make money while you sleep or while you're out of office. This helps you scale your magic and your energy so that you can live the life of your dreams without burning out. If you need a reminder that rest is productive and freedom is your birthright, consider this video your proof. I'll see you in the next video.